to start this with the thumbnail. You guys saw the thumbnail. The thumbnails are always legit here whenever we do clickbait. SpaceX. SpaceX launched on Friday at 10 o'clock. It was actually a little later than that when it was actually available for everyone to chart and trade. I think there was a ton of volatility, and the NASDAQ sort of withheld certain things. And I had multiple reports from multiple people tell me that the orders that they were putting in either were not getting filled or were only being filled partially. And that's because they had so much volatility that the market makers really weren't giving them what they wanted. They were just kind of saying, here's what you get. Be happy with it. So it took them a while to let all that dust kind of settle. At the end of the day, on Friday, we ended up doing this pretty gnarly, ugly wick. But boy, that thing changed on Monday. Monday, it throws a gap up. And what do I mean by gap? Well, if you come down to the chart and look on the 4 hour here, you can actually go down to the 2 hour here. There we go. It's a little easier to see. And I'll kind of point it out for you here. This is the closing bell on Friday, this candle here. That's a 2 hour candle. Obviously, we only have a few candles here because we opened late. And then it took a couple hours for the market to play out. Market was ended on Friday. Bam, you're done. And this is the candle that we get. On Monday, it opened higher. That means post-market and pre-market. Post-market on Friday and pre-market on Monday traded higher. And as such, we opened up at a higher level from here to here. That's about, it looks like 161.25, and then reopened at about 171.50. And what that means is orders were too large and created a massive gap in price. And as such, you created a CME gap. Now, the interesting thing about a CME gap is typically these fill. And what I mean by they fill, well, typically after you have a dramatic run up on a weekend move or a dramatic run up in post or pre-market, just like we had, a candle usually comes back down and closes that gap back to where it closed or back to where it opened, and sort of completes that gap and removes it from the market. Sort of test those market makers to see whether they were legit, whether they were full of it. In fact, it happened again on Tuesday morning. Market closed on Monday afternoon and then reopened on Tuesday morning with another gap. Now, mind you, at the end of the day, what do we get? This right here. You can see that after that push up, we threw a bit of a long tail on the top of this candle, a long wick. That's indicative of some sell pressure. All right, that sell pressure shows up all the way throughout the chart. And since we don't have a ton of data, I've gone down to the lower time frames here so we can sort of see a better view of it and try to grasp it a little easier. Just having three candles, you really can't analyze. You know what I mean? It's kind of tough to draw realistic data from three candles. And I'll be the first to admit that's not enough data. So let's go a little lower. We go down to the 2 hour, we go down to the 1 hour. We'll find a little bit more data here. It's risky. It's risky being down on these low time frames. So we're not going to put too much emphasis into it. We'll just look at it for what it is. So Tuesday, we throw another gap. We run all the way up to $225 per share, which puts this thing at $2.97 trillion market cap. That is good for the fourth spot, the number 4 spot in the entire world as far as company valuations. All right. It passed NVIDIA, Facebook, Microsoft, all of them. I believe the only 3 it didn't pass. Oh gosh, you'd have to look it up, but the top 3 are still there, right? Point is, it went way high real fast. It was the biggest launch of all time. As such, it can't last forever. Things must slow down. It's hard to explain to everyone, but when you have that big of a market cap, it's very difficult to multiply your money. All right? It's very, very difficult to multiply your money. When you have 3 trillion, it's extremely difficult to get to 6 trillion. It's much easier to go from $200 to $800, right? It's really, really difficult to go from 3 trillion to 6 trillion. That's like so much money. In fact, $3 trillion is 1/10 of all the money in the US. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be realistic here and realize that this can't stay up this high forever, but it did it. And we must talk about the fact that it did it. So anyway, we ran up, created a bit of a tail on the top of that candle, a long wick. That's indicative of sell pressure. We also have a bit of a resistance wall right there forming on the 2 hour. And if you drop down to 1 hour, you'll see it a little bit better. There you go. Resistance wall kind of hit, and now it started to fade back a little bit and slow down some. We didn't quite close that gap. It's still there, gap to about 192.45. It shot a candle down to 195 and some change. It did wick it back up before the end of the day, so even it doesn't want to slow down just yet. It's a lot of buy pressure with a little bit of sell pressure. It is worth noting that it's already done this one time through a red candle and had 3 more back behind it on the 4-hour, bang, 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 to pop right back up to 225. It's a very, very impressive showing. I was very vocal with saying I wanted to see this thing down to $100 so I could get in lower. I wasn't buying it at 175. That's crazy money. And 225 is even crazier. Hence why you see shorts come flying in. That high of a valuation is just madness. And while yes, you could potentially just buy and hold this thing long term, I need you to understand that only works for the people who can consistently buy and hold long term. That's about 14% of the population. Can the rest of you buy and hold long term? No, you can't. Because you either don't have the consistent funds to continually put into something that buys this all the time, or you just don't have any money to do it at all, or the third option, you don't care that much. You just give your money to someone else, they manage it for you, and perhaps the portfolio that you're in might have some of this, but it's not really your choice. People have got to start to realize that just because you think something doesn't mean that's a reality. I know immediately when you see charts go up, oh, it's because people are buying. All right. While you're not wrong, that's such a broad understatement that you are wrong. All right. It's a massive, broad understatement. So what do I see here? Well, I'm going to kick it back to the KuCoin pair, SPCXUSTT. There's a perpetual pair here for KuCoin. It's been out for a while already. I'll flip it to the daily here, and they did delist and relist this, so it looks a little bit cleaner than some other ones that I've seen, but obviously that's a clear breakout on the daily. And you've just had the 21 EMA reappear, which is at about 183 right now, 8 EMA back at 187. And again, with that sort of tail on top like that, that is indicative to me to say it's going to start to slow down at some point. I want you to notice that it also scraped this previous high here and has thrown a sell pressure wick on top of what would be the previous high listed over on KuCoin, which is some of the best data we have. It's sketchy, shaky data at best, but it's some of the best data we have. It would make sense for this thing to slow down at least a little bit, potentially back to 187 to 190. That's where the 8 EMA and 21 EMA sit on the daily chart. We kick it back to the 12-hour, 190 to 181, roughly that same range with a couple dollar difference. Makes sense, you know? I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. That was a violent one. Shook my back and everything. It only makes sense for this thing to slow down a little bit before it grabs another bite of steam and tries to go farther. What's up, Distinctive Shine? Good to see you, brother. Who else did I miss? Nobody else yet. Regardless of the fact, I'm still going to watch it. I'm still going to update this daily. I'm going to put these updates on X. Some will go up on YouTube. You'll be seeing it here on YouTube first. I'm going to update this thing daily. We also have a section in our Discord just for this. We talk about it all the time. 24/7, nonstop, 365. What you didn't know was, if you weren't in our Discord, you could have been trading this pair already for multiple days. Perpetual contracts, obviously not the same thing as buying the actual stock shares. But for what it's worth, most people couldn't get all the orders that they wanted to in anyway because the market was so volatile. And I don't think it's over. Eyes on it. Keep your head about you. This is a ton of money, folks.